Analysis paralysis. This is something that is becoming more and more common in our modern day because we have way too many choices. If you don't believe me or if you think you haven't felt it, go walk through the shampoo aisle at Target and you'll see that there are way too many options and you end up just looking through them and be like, you know what, I'm not gonna shampoo my hair. Or maybe you're scrolling through Netflix for like an hour and you end up choosing nothing and going to bed because there's just way too many options and you can't make that decision. Picking a side hustle is no different. There are so many options for you to do, and especially with the digital space, there's a plethora of things that you can pick as your side hustle. But how the heck do you do it? Picking a side hustle could be really life-changing, honestly. Like, it could bring you extra income, obviously, but it could also become your full-time job at some point if that's something that you want. So in this video, I'm going to show you and give you the tools to really think about what side hustle you want to start and how to choose it. Let's get you on that hustle train. Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? My name is Maricruz. I am an engineer, entrepreneur, and environmentalist, but on the YouTubes, I'm your small business coach. So, we're gonna get right into it. I'm gonna split it up into 3 parts. I love splitting things apart so that it's easy to do like in little bits and chunks. Okay, the first part is to decide what type of side hustle you want to do. So in my mind, there's 2 types of side hustles. The first one is the immediate income side hustle. Think dog walking, Ubering, TaskRabbit, or even something like babysitting. So all of these, you're literally trading your time for money, usually in an hourly rate, right? And there's already a platform for it, like the Uber platform or Rover for dog walking. So it's very like straightforward. Income comes into your bank account as soon as you do the work. It's all good and dandy. The second type is passion-driven side hustle. That's what I like to call it. So this one, maybe you're consulting or maybe you're providing a service of like a skill that you're really good at, but it's not necessarily readily available. Or maybe you're starting a company, like a product-based company. So that's not very easy and you're probably not gonna see the money right away just because it's not already set up for you and there's like some sort of setup that you have to do. So maybe you're getting the money indirectly, not necessarily like I work for an hour and I get $30. Maybe it's a little more indirect and maybe not as soon, but this is a big but you can have the potential of making this type of side hustle into more of a passive income, which is this buzzword that we're throwing around, but it's where we want to be, right? Making money while we're not working. So this one has a lot more potential, but it's not as quick at the beginning. Okay, so now that we have that, part 2 is to make a list of all the possible ideas that have been floating around in your head that have caused you to click on this video and have maybe potentially have caused analysis paralysis when you're like, I have no idea what to do because I have way too many options. Write them all down and categorize them based on these 2 types of side hustles. Maybe you only have one type of side hustle ideas. Maybe you have just both and you really are overwhelmed. But make a list, and depending on what type of side hustle you want, the list might look a little different, and maybe you want to ask yourself slightly different questions. So if you decide to go the immediate income type of side hustle, ask yourself what you like to do. So like if you like dogs, you'll do dog walking. If you like to drive, maybe you'll consider Uber or something like that. If you're more towards the passion driven, ask yourself what you're good at and what kind of skills you have that other people might need. One really good question to ask yourself during this part is there something I'm doing for free currently that I could be charging for? I have a new microphone, y'all. It's pretty fancy. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? It's like one of those podcasting ones, but it literally catches everything. I need to work on like the noise reduction. And finally, the third part of this is to rank them. This is my favorite part. And I'm going to take you back to algebra real quick. Don't worry, no math is required. But let's think about those x and y axis plots. You remember those when we had independent, dependent variable, and they looked like this, depending on where you put them. Anyway, yeah, let's go back to that. So let's make it really simple. You're going to pick two metrics that are really important to you when it comes to this side hustle journey that you're going to take on. So for example, I'm going to pick two of my most important ones. The first one was how quickly I'm going to see the money. And two, what is the ROI on this side hustle? ROI stands for return on investment. So what I mean by this one is what is my limit of how much income I could potentially make, right? So if we take these two things and do our X and Y axis like this, we can take something like dog walking. You will see money very quickly, right? So that will be really close on the how quickly I will see the money. It'll be really close to the zero, right? Because it would be pretty much immediately as soon as you create that work. But let's say it'll be, a couple weeks until you see money. But when it comes to ROI, right, the return on your investment, that time you invest an hour of dog walking can only give you the $30 that you're charging for it, right? There's no extra potential in that. Okay, so you're going to take your whole list of ideas and you're going to rank them on this plot based on those two metrics that you have chosen. So I'm going to give you an example just so that you can see what I mean, because sometimes things come out, but it's hard to implement. So let's take, for example, Panchita. Okay, Panchita really likes dogs, so she put dog walking on her list, but she's also an artist. So she put selling my art on the list. She also put art classes on the list because she's willing to do that. And since she's artsy, she's actually really good at graphic designing as well. So she put website development on there as well. So she has a list of 5 different things that she wouldn't mind doing, and she's stuck between choosing between these 5 things, like what to start, right? So let's use this example of the plot, right? If you remember, we have how long it takes to see the money on the x-axis and ROI on the y-axis. So if you take something like dog walking, on the x-axis, how long it takes to see the money, that's going to be really close to 0, right? Maybe a week or so. It just depends on you actually walking the dog, and then you'll see that payment on your account, right? But when it comes to ROI, the return on your investment, that potential, the income potential is very limited. So that's also going to be really close to 0, because if you charge $30 an hour, you work an hour, that's what you're going to get paid. And there's only 24 hours in a day. So the potential or the return on that investment of your time is really low. So it's going to be really close to 0 on both the X and the Y axis. If you take something like art classes, now we're talking, right? It will take longer for you to see the money initially. So on the x-axis, it will be really close to the end. But when you look at the return on investment, just think about it. If you have classes and you have 5 students, and maybe the next one you have 10 students, and maybe you do a full class of 30 students, there is a lot of potential there to increase that income with that same investment, right? Because once you have a class, then you have a class and you can teach it over and over again, and that invested time really is lowered, right? And if you want to get wild and crazy, you can digitize your class, right? And put it on something, on a platform like Skillshare, and then really the income potential is endless, right? There is no limit. So, okay, what about selling your art? On how long it'll take to see money? maybe it's more than the dog walking, but less than selling your art, right? Because you'll physically be selling your art and you'll receive the money. But you do have to invest the time into making the art. So that's why it'll take a little longer to see that money. On return on investment, it's also kind of halfway in between. When you get really famous and your art gets really, famous, I don't know how to call it in art. I am not an artist myself, but it'll start valuing more and more, ideally with time, right? So maybe it'll be like halfway through on the plot. Now let's take designing of websites. This one's an interesting one because there are some platforms already out there like Upwork or Fiverr that already have everything for you and the marketplace is there, and you can design websites for people and get paid in an hourly rate. So this, you could potentially get money really quickly, right? As soon as you design a website, you receive that money. But you could also have this be a more of a business rather than just an hourly transaction of time and money, and make it into business, get clients, and have more of a project-based income rather than hourly. So once you get that experience and you start getting really good at it, you'll be like, hey, I'll design your website for $500 rather than saying, hey, I'm $30 an hour and it'll take me 10 hours to do it, right? So then it'll give you some sort of incentive to really do it quicker, and your hourly rate will indirectly go up. So on the ROI, I think that is higher on the plot, and it's kind of like you can decide where to put it on the x-axis, because you can get money right away if you do something like Upwork or Fiverr, or it could take a little longer if you're like honing in on your skills. It really is up to you. But if you already know how to do it, then you're really close to zero on the x-axis and then pretty high up on the y-axis as well. Okay, so let's look at our final plot with all of our things plotted on it, for lack of a better term. So you can really see visually here where each of these side hustles land on these two metrics that you have defined for yourself. For example, flexibility in time. Like maybe you only have a certain amount of time to dedicate. So maybe something like dog walking you couldn't really do because you can only have time at night, for example. I don't know. Maybe effort is a big metric for you, right? I want something that is going to be easy. I don't want to have to be putting too much time into it or too much effort into it. So that could be a metric on one of your axes, right? So really think about those metrics. What is important to you? That's going to depend a lot on your current situation. Are you working full time? Do you have weekends off? Do you have a family? Are the kids in bed at a certain time? Those types of situations, keep that in mind. And then also keep in mind the financial side, right? Like, do you need money now? Like, are you struggling now and you need a side hustle now? That's going to be more in your quick income driving sort of side hustles that are probably going to be a better option for you, right? So really give it a thought and then lay them all out, and this will be really, really, really helpful for you to make a decision, right? And let's get right into it. Let's get started, because it is one of the best decisions you're going to make in your life, I think, because it could only bring positive to your life. I am actually feeling very blabbery today. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to try to make sure that all the editing and all of the examples really make sense. But if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments. I know I was talking a lot in this one. Another very important aspect of starting a side hustle or a side business is defining your why. So if you have time, I would suggest watching this video next. If you feel like you are ready to get started, or you want to get an idea of what it would entail to start a business, I would watch this video next. Either way, stick around, watch another video. It really helps me out. And if you learned anything new, please hit that like button. And I want you, this is your homework. That's the teacher in me. Your homework for today is to let me know in the comments your 2 metrics that you're going to use in your X and Y plot for this exercise. So let me know down in the comments because I would love to continue this conversation down there and help you out because that's what I'm here for. I'm here for you. I'm cheering for you. And until next time, don't forget, poquito goes a long way. Ciao.